If you have 2 coats and someone has no coat, you are to give 1 coat. And you are to have no expectation of return. That is how we loan in the church. There's only giving. There's only sharing. There's only charity. There's only love. This nation under God, practicing God's laws and practicing God's ways, has no form of usury, has no interest. We do not say to somebody, here's $100, pay me $112 back next week or next year. That is not godly. You know, we all are going to go through different situations in our life, and different droughts and different famines and different diseases will come upon individuals at different times. And that's why we work as a body and act as a body, so we can help each other. Slavery was really created through the system of usury or interest. And we know that there were many, many Hebrew slaves, not just in Egypt, but after. Because calamities would come upon some, and those in privileged situations would take advantage of those in underprivileged situations. And that is not for the children of God. As I had mentioned, we are all to inherit our own land. Today, the rich own the land and the property. And we are often born without inheritance or privilege. We're born into this world naked. And as we come in naked, without position, without money, without inheritance, we go to work. And for many, many years of our toil and labor, we are then able to come up with a down payment so we can live in a home. Then we get the privilege of taking 25, 30, 40 years these days to pay that mortgage with huge interest rates, so that for the first 5 years we're paying almost only interest. Tell you what's wrong. It's called usury. That's what's bringing on this economic mess in the U.S. Since they took the dollar off the gold standard and said the dollar is no longer worth a certain price in gold, it can be floated and be whatever it wants to be, it's become a credit-based economy. It is an entirely credit-based economy. You walk into a bank, say I need $10,000, the bank just creates $10,000, opens an account, and you owe them. And they charge interest. And the thing is, it's like a giant hamster wheel. And you have to extend more and more credit to grow the economy. And people have to get more and more in debt to grow the economy. So people are thinking it's good that they've paid off a third of their house, that they should go back out and refinance it and go back into huge debt again. Just so they can do what? Own a car, send their children through college, reasonable things. Reasonable things. And people are going into massive debt again to do this. There's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. And once the debt stops being repaid and credit stops being extended, people stop borrowing, the whole economy collapses. And it brings desolation on the land. So the first problem is the usury. The second problem is the fact that people are grabbing property and owning property so that they can make profit on it, and so that normal people who need a home have to pay a lot of money, and inflates these properties. Matthew 23:14 cautions, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, the hypocrites, for ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer, therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation." These men during Jesus' time would appear lawful and righteous, and yet would devour widows' homes, would take the homes from them. Because the widows, why widows? Because their husband is no longer working. They don't have the same income anymore. They're in a difficult position financially, and they're vulnerable. And so these scribes and Pharisees were taking advantage and taking these homes. Is that right? But what's different from then and now? What's different? Still going on. Isaiah 5 verse 8. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. Speculation, greed, the idea of owning property after property after property, renting it out, renting it out, renting it out, increasing wealth until what? Having these palatial lands and palatial estates to live on brings desolation to the land. Ultimately, this is what will happen. We know if we don't keep God's ways, even economically, there are consequences. These things all point to a certain outcome. Hosea 4 verse 1, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. And that's what we're seeing. Truth is going by the wayside. Mercy is gone. We're trying to bail out corporations, but we're not even concerned about individuals' and families anymore. Will you rob God? Will you rob man? It's become more and more legal to rob the average person. That's it. That's sinful. If we had compassion and if we had a knowledge of God, we would not allow this to happen in our land. What else is going on? By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out and blood touches blood in the land. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame. There is an abomination that brings desolation on the land. There are many forms of abomination. Certainly, false worship and idolatry is an abomination that brings desolation on the land. The breaking of God's commandments is an abomination as well. Stealing, robbing, usury, all these things are an abomination. Greed, backbiting, all the spirits of the world. It's no wonder we see this calamity coming upon the USA and affecting all kinds of countries around the world. This thing can go around the whole world. Fortunately, we do not put our treasure in these areas and trust and covet so much that this world has to offer, but build our treasures in heaven, where rust nor moth nor nothing can touch it. Fortunately, that's a nation under God. God's people, God's church, that's how we invest. We invest in our future when Jesus will return. But for those of the world, great calamity will come upon them. And woe to them who do these things. May God bless you.
Amen.